you're very much running a publicly traded startup with all of the cons of running a startup, with all of the cons of running a publicly traded company.
Welcome everybody into Crypto Project of the Year from Coinage, the only community-owned, award-winning media DAO steered by our NFT holders and backed by the co-founder of Netflix. I'm your host, Zach Guzman, coming to you live from our Brooklyn studios in New York City. Excited to be highlighting two giants, and I do say giants in the NFT and crypto space today with us, nominees to be crowned champion in our Crypto Project of the Year competition. Two guests that need no introductions, but I will introduce them anyways. On with us today, you got Luca Netz, the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, as well as Jonathan Lintala, the CEO over at Phaver. And excited to be highlighting both of what Phaver is doing and what Pudgy Penguins have been up to this year as we try and figure out which project in the crypto space will be crowned Crypto Project of the Year. And of course, it won't be me making that call, and it won't be anyone in this building here in the studio. It will be our NFT holders, and you can vote at coinage.media and fill out a bracket to win a quarter of an ETH if you want. If you don't have an NFT, you can scoop one up right now at coinage.media. But guys, thank you so much for coming on, Jonathan and Luca. And Jonathan, you've been on the show before. Basically, the structure of what we're doing today is just learning a little bit more about your projects for those who don't know, and then going back and forth to see what's going on next year and celebrate what you guys have done this year. But Jonathan, you've been on before, so maybe we just say hello to you first and say thanks for coming back on and congrats on everything that Phaver's been doing in 2023. But for those who don't know, what's Phaver all about?
Hey, great to be back this time. Instead of rainy Brooklyn, I'm in snowy Helsinki in Finland. So we'll be joining Luca in Miami next week. So very hyped for some warmth instead of the sub-zero temperatures we have here at the moment. Very glad to be back on the show as well. And Phaver in a nutshell, we're a Web3 social app. And what that actually means is that unlike traditional social apps, you actually get that ownership of your profile through Lens protocol. And we also integrate tons of different assets that come from the blockchain and from your wallets, including the Pudgy Penguins, into Phaver as well. So the idea is you build your own social graph, you own your own social graph, and you can do all that with the power of blockchain.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch. And of course, you know, our NFT holders, I think you're going to flex later on. Maybe more than 1,200 of them have already used their NFT to start earning cred points on Phaver. And Luca, I'm not going to sit here and say the Coinage, NFT prices are as high as Pudgy Penguins. But I will say that the enthusiasm, I think, is shared in both projects. Congrats on what you guys have seen. I think the NFT price, the floor price since April is like almost up double. So congrats on the year. And yeah, a little bit more about what Pudgy Penguins is doing differently than all the other NFT projects out there.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to our mission at Pudgy Penguins. We want to lead the consumer-facing crypto revolution. I think when you look at the next step that crypto needs to take to be where it wants to be and where it needs to be, is it needs to evolve from this speculative financial model driven by pumps and dumps to digital ownership and accessibility and all of the use cases that I think really make blockchain exciting. And ultimately, I think that revolution is going to be a consumer-facing revolution. And so how do you make crypto unintimidating, non-taboo? And how do you distribute blockchain technology through these little Pudgy Penguins? I would probably say is the 30-second TLDR of what we're doing over here.
Yeah, as we've been going through all the projects that have been nominated for this little celebration of the top projects in crypto, it has been interesting to kind of see some of the similarities. And I think that's definitely one of them when it comes to trying to onboard the masses. And I think it's certainly a similar theme here with Phaver, and what you guys are doing is kind of the chosen front end for the Lens ecosystem. We partnered or paired Lens and Phaver for this matchup today because the ecosystems are so similar. But Luca, I mean, you guys have been leading the charge. There's so much to talk about. I don't know if there's one thing that stands out to you in the way that Pudgy has been able to maybe achieve that mission this year, whether it's the Walmart partnership and getting your guys' IP in front of so many people in Walmarts, or if there are other things that really, I think, maybe hit that home in terms of the progress on your guys' mission this year.
Yeah, I think it's a slew of things. We are just crossed 1 million followers on Instagram. We're getting, 10, 20, 50 million views on some of the videos there. We just crossed 10 billion impressions on our gifts and stickers on Giphy. Obviously Walmart right now is selling about 30 to 35,000 toys every single week. From our perspective, I think those are probably maybe 3 or 4 things that have kind of led the charge there. But if you kind of look under the hood, there's more exciting initiatives that we're working on that we'll be releasing here shortly. And so I think this is really just the beginning for us. We were trying to see, does the penguin stick? Is there a thesis there that is, bigger than this community of crypto natives? And so far, it has proven to be the case.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things, right? When we're pairing, what you can do with NFTs in, this time of the evolution of it, when we're kind of getting ready for 2024. Not only is it all about IP, which I want to get into with you in a sec, but it's also about kind of some of the utility aspects, Jonathan, and that's kind of what I think is exciting about Phaver and the way that you can pair your NFT to create community, I suppose, on a decentralized social platform like Phaver and Lens, and really start to bring together the components that make this IP powerful, which is it attracts, I guess, similar like-minded individuals.
Yeah, I've been kind of for the last year or so touring a lot of the different NFT events all around the world, and kind of sort of doing the vibe check of which are the projects that actually have a real community. And then realizing, for example, we were in the Pudgy event during the Ape Fest in Hong Kong, and have been to a lot of the other similar ones, and kind of have seen that there are a lot of these projects, the most successful ones that actually build real human connections, is not just about I own an asset on the blockchain, or even about I own a penguin or an ape or a CryptoPunk on the chain. It's really about the community that it creates. And sort of the very natural next step of that is like bringing that into social media. So bringing it into literal community and using those assets as keys to exclusive experiences, bringing together those people who are kind of joining into something by being part of that virtual community and sometimes physical community when they meet face to face. And we're super bullish about the community aspect that we will be rolling out next week, where Pudgy's is also one of the launch partners. So looking forward to seeing how do we get people away from the murks of Discord and Telegram and into something that's actually a bit more day-to-day and kind of similar to the, let's say, traditional social media usage.
Yeah, no, it's been cool to watch all the functionality coming through on Phaver, and as I said, a lot of our members have nominated Phaver to be included here, and I think that's why. And Luca too. I mean, it's hard to kind of measure metrics in this space. I think it is kind of interesting. I mentioned floor price. I'm sure that's not the only thing that matters to the people in your community. What are those kind of metrics as a founder in this space, and again, as one myself, when we look at all of the things in measuring community to make sure things are going in the right way?
It was it's a fascinating question, because on its face, there's obviously a couple obvious ones. And then I spoke to a founder, and the consensus was community sentiment. And I actually really agreed with that. So kind of how I gauge success is really based on community sentiment. And there's really no quantifiable metric in which you can gauge that, other than just scrolling through the timeline and through the Discord and communicating with community members. But to me, that is probably the most important metric. Are the community members happy? Are people having a good time? Are they galvanizing around the vision? Do they believe? Are they confused? And I think over the last 12 months, it's really been a priority for us, and probably a huge reason why we've seen the success that we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting questions, right? When we're doing this, it is a bracket, so people can choose which projects advance to be crowned Crypto Project of the Year. And, you guys are paired in this one. They're both great projects by my estimate, but only one can move forward, which means, it'll be on the watchers and listeners that we have. So be sure to throw a like on the space if you're listening in this one, and retweet it to make sure your communities are aware and join in. But Luca, I mean, on that, it's so funny when you think about sentiment in the NFT space, because earlier this year, things were looking pretty dark. I'm going to be honest. And it wasn't just, NFTs in the art space. It was kind of NFTs across the board. And people did look to like ones that were doing things in the real world. Have you kind of sensed that is the biggest arbiter of sentiment right now, is kind of off-chain pushes?
I think it's consistent output and productivity. The NFT space, I believe, got to where it went because of the lack of output, accompanied with just huge resources and huge funding and huge capabilities that a lot of these projects had. And so I think consistent output as well as laser focused vision and North Star, I think that the combination of the two, I think, kind of yields us the success that you've seen up until this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, it has been fascinating to watch all of that. And Jonathan, I don't want to overlook kind of some of the more traditional metrics either, which, a huge celebration to you guys in your $7 million round raised earlier this year. That was a big boost to, I think, a lot of the projects watching maybe some of the funding dry up. But talk to me about kind of what the growth has been like at Phaver in your guys' mission to build decentralized social.
Yeah, I think growth has been sort of fairly stable, but also very slow. And I think that's actually a good thing at this point. So if you think about kind of validating things during the last bull run, obviously, like all kinds of shit projects were able to get tons of funding, tons of users, whether they're real or not, and everybody was making money out of thin air. So kind of succeeding in that environment doesn't really validate that you're actually doing the right thing. It might just validate that the market is crazy at any given moment. But then the projects like Phaver or Pudgies that are being kind of built and pushed out during the market where you actually have to do your work and you actually have to produce value and build that community, and you cannot kind of ride the hype train. I think that's been sort of a lot more validating. And obviously it took us a year and a half to raise 7 million in this environment. But the upside is that that meant that we talked to over 200 scared and skeptical crypto investors over that time, all of them trying to poke holes into our plan and trying to figure out why they shouldn't invest because they're all scared about the bear market. So then kind of figuring out all of those points that they brought up and more getting confident about, okay, like nobody's able to poke holes into the plan anymore. I think that's been actually very helpful. And long term, obviously, eventually there's going to be another bull run, at which point those projects that have been built now to be resilient will be able to succeed much better. But in the end, it should not be about like number go up, everybody comes in. That should be maybe a means to an end, but really what real projects in the consumer space need to be building is real consumer utility that's not based on market prices.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the trickiest things. And Luca, I don't know if there's something that you would say to that piece in terms of, so much attention is put on floor price, or if it's a token, so much is put on, the price of the token in this ecosystem. As a builder who's been working on that, who has to also answer to a community out there, I mean, how does that maybe influence the longer term vision of this, and maybe exactly why so many people focus in on Pudgy as an example to point to as one that maybe matters more than just number go up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you're very much running a publicly traded startup with all of the cons of running a startup, with all of the cons of running a publicly traded company. And a lot of that is because of this metric that is this first edition collectible that people collect, that your early supporters collect, that ultimately kind of references how good or poorly you're doing. I've kind of accepted the fact that if floor price was indicative of productivity and development and progress, that we would easily probably be the number one project by now. And it isn't. So at some point, you just have to understand the market controls this. And you are in the business of just doing your best and sticking through and pushing forward. But I can't control what I can't control. I can't control that stuff. All I can do is continue pursuing and working towards the North Star that we are setting out and I believe accomplishing every single day.
I laugh because our producer over here is getting crazy with the soundboard and agreeing with a lot of the points that you just made, as am I, because I think that that's kind of true to what makes this space seem like it's moving forward a little bit, right? Where it's not just kind of some of the shenanigans that maybe existed before, but now kind of a lot of attention put on some of the real value. And of course, I'm speaking as the founder of a decentralized media company that is steered by our NFT holders, not only in this vote, but for all of our coverage in terms of unlocking dividends and what we're doing, which I think is fairly important as an outlet that's trying to cover these things objectively. But Luca, that's a question that I've had for a lot of builders in the space. And Jonathan, I'd be curious to get your take on this after too, because the tokenomics, the models of all these things differ from project to project. And Luca, you guys really seem like you've honed in, I think, or at least the leading projects seem like they've honed in on really tokenizing the value of the IP. Explain to me, and maybe those who aren't familiar, exactly with, not just owning the NFT, but then unlocking the IP of these Pudgy Penguins, and what kind of that financial model looks like as people start to wrap their heads around, okay, this isn't just art anymore.
Yeah, the idea with Pudgy Penguins, or at least one of the things that we kind of want to disrupt, is just traditional IP building. And so IP building today is built up of a relationship between brand and consumer. And the relationship that we want to create with Pudgy Penguins is a relationship between brand and participant. And so how do you democratize IP and actually use these first edition collectibles to align incentives between the brand and the first believers? And so the idea is, as we continue to succeed and make more products and make more content and scale our licensing business, rather than making those products ourselves, i.e., drawing our own Pudgy Penguins that are not NFTs, we go to our NFT holders and say, hey, we're going to take your NFT, we're going to alchemize it, we're going to turn it into a toy, and then we're going to distribute this toy, and every time we sell it, you'll get a royalty in perpetuity. That relationship and that example is a relationship that I coin as brand and participant, right? And that, I think, will issue a new era of how you build not only just IP brands, but I think just consumer-facing brands in general. And what I've learned over the last couple of years is that the first 5,000 customers or champions of your company are always the hardest to get, and the NFT process and the NFT mechanism expedites that. And so how do you create a mutually beneficial relationship between brand and holder that kind of aligns the incentives, right? Royalties have gone to zero. Companies, NFT projects need to go and make money. The best way to do it is the way that Disney and Sanrio and all these other, character companies have done for, 100 plus years now, which is, distribute, license, make products, make content. And in Web3, I believe that is going to be the model that brings, honestly, crypto mass adoption. I think there's no better vehicle than the NFT, especially a character brand, to actually go and do that. You have to reinvent that relationship. And so every toy in Walmart, 16 toys, 16 SKUs, 16 holders with 16 licensing agreements. And every time one of those toys sell, they get a royalty in perpetuity that gets paid out annually. And so, it's an ambitious vision, but one that I think will disrupt a lot of the traditional models today when we succeed.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think that is a core tenet of Web3, and it's also kind of similar to the ethos of what we're doing at Coinage in terms of our NFTs unlocking membership in a cooperative, which we are, and the idea of distributing patronage dividends, which is no different than REI and other co-ops around the world who share the upside incentive with their members. And I do think that is, one of the key reasons why any builder steps into Web3 is aligning interests. And Jonathan, we've discussed this a number of times, but having a decentralized social media platform where, your posts and everything else and the value you create on these networks, you start to unlock benefits. And I think that's a key piece of what you guys have been doing at Phaver, and certainly as a leading member of the Lens ecosystem. Talk to me about maybe why that's so important versus the old model.
Yeah, I think kind of Phaver and Coinage and Pudgy Penguins are kind of all examples of sort of the next generation of crypto or blockchain projects where you're generating actual real world value for something and then you're sharing that value. So kind of the last wave of stuff was all about kind of let's create value out of thin air, out of speculation, Ponzi-nomics, and not really creating any real value out of it. But then when you start thinking about kind of tokenization as a way to kind of get that ownership or get that share or kind of be part of a group and be part of that early adopter supporter group, for example, then that really changes it around. So we're not trying to build a speculative loop, for example, like Friend Tech did, where it's all about speculating. If somebody's number goes up, then you make money. If number go down, then you lose money. It should be about how do we together create value for real people who are willing to pay for it one way or another, whether it's with their attention or their money, or they go to Walmart, they buy a penguin, they go and share the gifts on their chats and all of that happening around the world. Then if you're generating real value, then you can actually give real dividends out of that. But if the value is all speculative, it's not going to be very long lasting, because in the end, the number will go down and then everything crashes again. And we've seen that quite a few times. So social media is...
I think that's what's the interesting piece of it, though, because you guys are introducing a token. I think there's been a lot of excitement around when that's going to happen. I think the last time you and I chatted, it was slated for maybe this summer. And the idea of when, yeah, fingers crossed, when it's going to happen, when token, always a question. But more importantly, I think, is just the aligned incentives piece of what the token unlocks for projects like a Pudgy Penguins or a Coinage when their members are being, when we're able to communicate with them on a platform like yours.
Yeah, and I think Luca very well pointed out that kind of launching your token or NFT, it's kind of getting all of the downsides of the public market without the real upsides. So we're also kind of making sure that we are actually ready for kind of jumping into that floating market where your token rate will be going up and down based on random whims. And obviously, we want to make sure that the distribution of our airdrops, for example, is going to be fair. So we've been putting a lot of effort into the bot and Sybil detection. And we have a big crew of people kind of actively monitoring that situation, building more safeguards, building the credibility score in the app to make sure that we're actually going to be distributing the rewards to the real people. And then at the same time, building more gamification where we make sure that the right actions, such as creating good content, curating good content, or moderating out bad content, are the things that are going to be rewarded. And then once we're comfortable with all of that, we're getting very close to it. Then it's time to kind of launch out the token. And with social media, the cool part is that people are generating genuine value to others. So if you're a great content creator, people want to be seeing your content. Some people want to even pay for that content, or at least they're okay seeing some advertising next to your content in order to get it for free. Yeah. And that means there's an actual kind of genuine value exchange happening. So it's not just speculation and just number go up. And if we're able to frame that into the token, then it means that we're actually able to fairly reward the right people who are creating the value. Just like the content generators of like TV and Netflix, they get paid. But if you're generating that for Instagram or TikTok, you're not going to be paid for the content you're generating, even if people's screen times are similar. So I think it's only a matter of time where people start realizing that they should not be creating for free and somebody else takes all the money.
Yeah, or you've got to monetize other ways and go figure out a way to add that monetization to what you'd love to do, which is just create content. I think it is exciting, and I think you guys have hit on a lot of the points as to why you're here, why you're in the running for Crypto Project of the Year. But Jonathan, you also dropped a little bit of alpha there, I think. Now's the part of this conversation where we shift towards the look ahead, the alpha to come in the new year, what's planned, because, when you zoom out and think about how much was accomplished in 2023, and you put it in the context of what's planned for next year, I think that's really where maybe some of the people voting on Crypto Project of the Year, some of our viewers, people in the space, will be able to know exactly what's coming. And Luca, I'd turn to you because, I think there's so much to talk about in the way that you've been able to deliver on the IP monetization piece, or at least just growing the excitement, like you said, sentiment with Pudgy Penguins. But what's next? It's always what's next. That's what everyone keeps asking. So I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, what's next, I think, really comes December 9th at our Art Basel event. For us, I think that's going to issue a new era for Pudgy Penguins. Where if you get what we're going to go for, you're going to see the vision. And I think that that vision is going to be really important for where I think crypto and a lot of this industry is going. And I'm going to be excited to debut that then.
Yeah, I think, when we think about where this whole space goes, not just NFT projects, but I think everything in general, Jonathan, I think there seems to be an added incentive right now, or an added focus on connectivity, or bring some of the value back to the communities in these projects. I don't know how Phaver fits into that or what you have planned for 2024, but curious to hear even more alpha leaks from what you just mentioned and how Pudgy plugs in.
Yeah, so as I mentioned briefly earlier, we're going to be rolling out a kind of very big feature for us, which is called the Phaver holder communities, where the idea is that it's going to be then a lot easier for people to come together in sort of like a Facebook group-like environment to meet with fellow, for example, Pudgy holders or fellow Coinage NFT holders, and have those discussions, have premium memberships, or have just that sense of community and following those fellow holders. We've been interviewing, for example, a lot of the Bored Ape holders over the last couple of years, and what they're telling me is that the number one need they would have for Twitter is how do you follow all the genuine ape holders, instead of having to try to map them and try to figure out who is paying Elon to be able to get the certified profile pic and who's just faking having an ape and all that. Just bringing the people together and verifying that they're the genuine people and not impersonators and scammers actually has a pretty big value already. And we're hoping that this is going to be something that will actually bring more utility for the NFT projects, because they can more easily bring their people together in an everyday organic way. And this obviously doesn't have to be facilitated by the projects themselves. It can also just be the NFT holders coming together. There's tons of these local alliances or clubs for NFT holders of whether it's Pudgies or Bored Apes in different cities. And they can kind of organize with this sort of a setup on their own as well. So that's going to be quite exciting. We're also sponsoring the Pudgy event next week. So look forward to kind of kicking off also the community partnership. As part of that, we have a couple of other bigger events also slated up for Art Basel. So it's going to be quite a long weekend pretty much. And then obviously once we get this one out, then hopefully it starts looking good and we get more of the NFT holders in. Right now we have about 70,000 wallets connected on Phaver with over 36 million worth of NFTs in them. So it's a pretty good start, again, in the bear market where each NFT is worth 10% of what it used to be. So with that, like 36 million, it probably would have been 360 million a year and a half ago. But again, floor price does not really matter because that's not a real proxy of real value as we've seen. Yeah. So it's just something that we can try to separate the fake users from the real users at this point. And then if all goes well, hopefully Q1, we're going to be seeing the token as the next big thing when we're able to start genuinely rewarding the people who have been believing in us so far. And also rewarding the people who keep coming in. So not just the early holders, but also the value creators of the future.
All right, yeah, I'm looking at some of the questions that were thrown our way, and when token was one. We got that answered now. Q1 for next year is the definitive answer from Jonathan on that one as we move forward. The other aspect of kind of how we've gotten here worth considering, I suppose, is also, you know, a number go up is not just about the actual number. There are stumbles along the way. Luca, I don't know if there's anything that stands out to you, maybe when we look back on 2023, that you would have done differently in leading the Pudgy ecosystem. Because, you know, it's fun to have founder conversations about what we all would have probably done differently if we knew looking back, but not sure if anything stands out.
Yeah, I mean, there's one obvious one. I think the only time where we made an announcement and had negative price action or, or negative sentiment, I think price action is the wrong word, was when we released an announcement around the rods. And I wish I would have just memed it a little harder and been a little less serious with that announcement. And if I could go back in time and change anything, it'd probably be around that.
I mean, a lot of people might hear that answer and say, wait a minute, explain this a little bit more, because I don't think people use metrics like memes or GIFs in the same way that you guys do at Pudgy, but it is a serious one that you guys point to. And I don't know if you ever get pushback on that, but I think it's important and worth highlighting.
Yeah, it's the culture of this community. And what I think I did in the beginning was I tried to force maybe a more serious approach without kind of staying lindy. And so I believe that there's this balance between, you know, serious professional business and the culture that made the Pudgy Penguins great, which is a mimetic one. I took a very mimetic asset within our ecosystem that was created before I took over Pudgy Penguins, and I tried to make it very serious rather than doubling down in what made it so great. And so that would be, if I could turn back time and change anything, it'd probably be that.
Jonathan, I don't know if you have anything in that vein as well, but you know, we all make decisions differently if we have more information around it looking back.
Yeah, I think kind of one thing we could have done even earlier is start focusing on validating sort of the genuine audience, because that's the big problem in crypto in general. You either have to make people pay a significant amount of money for something to make sure they are real and unique, or then you kind of just accept the fact that out of your million users, probably 900,000 are not actual users, but just duplicate wallets. And that sort of like collective sort of intellectual dishonesty to a certain extent on user metrics, and looking at people like trading back and forth on their NFT to create liquidity is a big problem if you try to create something real, and again, not just kind of create speculation. So we've been, for this year, that's been our main theme, where instead of trying to drive for user growth, as the primary metric. The growth is all focused on genuine, unique users. So we'd
Yeah.
rather grow slower. We obviously, I think it doesn't really hurt that we in the early days had people swarm in with multiple accounts, because that's just what happens. But we've been able to kind of identify those, and those who have been like clearly cheating, creating 1,000 accounts, we've been banning them. And we're also very explicit to our community that every time somebody cheats the system and creates tons of accounts, it's actually stealing from everybody else. Because that's what's happening is if you come in and you airdrop farm with 1,000 accounts, that means that you're diluting everybody else's value. Those people who are there with one account and doing real stuff, and the community is kind of 100% behind us on that as well.
Yeah.
So that's maybe something that could have doubled down even earlier, but luckily we're doing token.
I've always wondered about that too, Luca, as someone who, obviously focuses a lot on the Pudgy Penguins metrics, but looks at other metrics in the NFT space as well. I don't know if there's anything that you would call out in that vein too. I tend to look at kind of, unique ownership rates in a lot of these projects to try and get a sense of what Jonathan's talking about as far as like real people versus what data is on chain. I don't know if there's anything that you've learned as maybe advice to people who are in the NFT space to try and watch some of these metrics.
I know it's a fascinating question, and one that, one of the people that sits on our advisory board is Alex from Nansen, the CEO of Nansen. And so one thing that we've been able to do is kind of rework data to really get a clear picture as to, what metrics matter. I mean, and this is why I ultimately had to remove myself from the burden of the floor price to the equation, because there's so many variables that don't matter. I'll give you an example. When I first took over Pudgy Penguins, we couldn't break 1 ETH, or we were getting like floor price tanked from 4 ETH to 1 ETH. And I called Alex and I said, Alex, what's happening? I think I'm doing such a great job. Why is it reading the way that it's reading? And he pulled up the Nansen dashboard and he said, Luca, it's the same two guys who own like 150 penguins that are doing this. And everybody else seems to be pretty happy. But these two guys are the people that are making your life really difficult. And it took me about 4 months for them to eventually sell all their penguins. And then the rest is history. We've been on an upwards trajectory since. And this is why this stuff matters, right? This is, so I think unique ownership is a really interesting one. How many days held is a really fascinating one. We reward participation with soul bounds. So, if you participate in the community, we have this thing called Most Valuable Penguin. Every month we pick 4 people, right? You get an MVP soul bound. So I can kind of track which community members are participating. And then when, the bull market comes, you can figure out ways to reward the entire community and then maybe add a little extra on top for the people that have those soul bounds. And so there's looking at the data is not to be underestimated, long story short, because I think it tells a clearer picture than maybe you might be able to assume on its face.
How do you measure that activity, though? That is a question I suppose it varies community to community, but specifically for Pudgies, as it's the only NFT project, by the way, I think, you can make the argument Phaver might be another NFT project, but it's the only PFP project that is included in Crypto Project of the Year. So it's a question around that piece, is the community aspect.
Yeah, so from my perspective, there's it's a lot of it has to be kind of a lot of the credit has to be given to our community team, and so this is something that we've done really well since the beginning. Is we have probably 9 people on our Web3 community team that all kind of circle back and identify either progress from certain community members. Fix problems, keep the culture up to par. And they are the ones indexing all of the successes and progress. And then we're solidifying that success through soul bounds. And so that's kind of how we are doing it today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of different levers to pull, and a lot of different projects pull them in different ways. So it's exciting to see kind of how the top ones are doing it, and very similar to kind of how we do things here at Coinage as well. Again, you can choose who's going to win crypto project of the year right now and win a quarter of an ETH by filling out a bracket right now at coinage.media. In choosing the winner here, the vote's now live at coinage.media as well. We're seeing some votes trickle in. It's going to be one of these two, Pudgy Penguins or Len/Phaver, as we've grouped them up in this particular matchup. And gentlemen, as we wind down, I might just give you one last opportunity to really pump your own community here and how proud you are of your team. Specifically, Luca, you're mentioning just your Web3 team there. I know it takes a lot of things as a guy who's running something over here at Coinage. It takes a lot of people behind the scenes to get these projects to where they are. Jonathan, I've met some of your team members too. I mean, talk to me about how important that is when you're not just dealing with what Lucas said. You're not just dealing with number go up and price and sentiment and, you know, people who are NFT holders, but you're dealing with running teams behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, on our end, obviously the team has been phenomenal and a big part of how we're growing. We're 28 people around the world right now. And what's really cool about the team is that they're genuinely caring about our community members. They're spending hours a day on the Discord, Telegram, Phaver app, discussing with our community members, giving them feedback, highlighting things. And then that really shows when we go into the local events. So we hosted a happy hour for our Turkish community a couple of weeks ago during DevCon in Istanbul. And there were so many people coming in, talking to me about how they've met great people on Phaver. One of the local guys gave a gift to my grandmother, who she'd actually he'd befriended on Phaver in the previous week. My grandmother is now a Phaver influencer, posting my baby pictures. So go check out pink.lens on Phaver for my childhood photos. But
I got to figure out what your grandma's been posting, by the way, on other platforms, because the last time you were on, you said she got banned on Facebook and something happened over there, and it was all deplatformed with your grandma. So I am curious to hear a little bit more about Grandma Jonathan over there, Grandma Lintala.
Yeah, she's become a proper degen now. Like after being deplatformed for Facebook, she's now a full Web3 social user. But that's, I think, that's like when you try to measure community, that's, I think, a pretty solid thing where if people are sending gifts to your grandmother because they've started talking to her on your platform, there is something else than just number go up going on. And that's obviously hard to quantify en masse, but that's kind of what we're trying to build for. So genuine human connections and not just for the speculation and number go up.
Yeah, and Luca, you've kind of given a little bit more of the behind-the-scenes look, actually. I've enjoyed the YouTube series that you've been putting out and kind of talking about the behind-the-scenes as a founder and all the things that go on to building something like this. It's been fun to watch, but I don't know if there's anything else to add in terms of, you know, the rest of the team over at Pudgy Penguins.
Yeah, I mean, I always get the credit, but the credit is not mine to take. We've got a team of superstars. I think we're about 40 people now. That show up every day and make all of this stuff happen. I'm just the one going on the interviews and doing the monkey dance, but it's really it starts and stops with the rest of the group, and I'm super thankful to be leading this charge and working with every single one of them.
Right on. I mean, to wrap up here, we've only got like 5 minutes left. I know you guys have other things to do and clearly other meetings to get to. But as we host all these spaces, yesterday it was a little bit interesting as we were hosting a discussion between Algorand and Arbitrum, obviously two different ecosystems and ethos around how to scale these things as an L2 versus an L1. Over here, it's been a much friendly affair because you guys are going to be hanging out at Art Basel, I believe, in just a few days. So no one's going at each other's throats here. And I don't suspect any of that to happen in the waning moments of this space. But nonetheless, I'll give you the opportunity as you make one final pitch here in terms of why Pudgy Penguins and or the Phaver Squad should move forward. And Luca, I'll give it to you first, man.
I think we should move forward because I think we've really are carving out a place within this crypto ecosystem that I think is so necessary. I think what we're doing is bigger than Pudgy Penguins. I think we're trying to reinvent a narrative that is that I think hasn't been written before, at least in this specific industry. And if we don't make it past the next round, then I would like nothing more than a company like Phaver to beat us. I think there's very few companies I would say that for.
That is a very kind way. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. I wish that there was a way to rearrange this. I didn't make the bracket specifically because I wanted one of you to win and not move forward. But, you know, it's not the last time we'll be having you on Coinage, I assume and I hope. But Jonathan, over to you as well, because it's an interesting matchup. I don't think there is one in the bracket that's more so intertwined than this one.
Yeah, I think kind of would be much happier beating anybody else in that bracket, in the sense that kind of we are sort of building towards the same goal in a very synergistic way. So we're seeing that like genuinely consumer-friendly NFT projects are going to be one of the key growth drivers for consumer adoption of blockchain. And that's why Phaver is also doubling down on the NFT projects as a key part of building it. Mm-hmm. What I can say to especially our community is that remember that you guys are getting cred and points every day with your NFTs when those are on Phaver. And if it's starting to look desperate for us, we might need to start bribing you with some more points for voting for us.
I think it's time. I'm not, as the one leading my own community, I'm not gonna say don't give our community more cred on Phaver. I'm not gonna say that's a bad idea, but I do think it has been fun to have you guys both on Coinage today and talking about these projects. The vote is live at coinage.media to find the link there or in the space. Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and congrats again. Obviously, it's not exactly a competition so much as it is a celebration of the top projects in crypto, and I'm happy our community brought you guys on with us today, and thank you again for the time. Luca, Jonathan, congrats on everything you guys done, and thank you for everyone listening to the space. Appreciate you joining us. As always, you can check out more at coinage.media, and thanks again to our sponsor, BitGo, for helping us get this off as we continue to spotlight the top projects in crypto. You can learn more about BitGo, the strongest foundation in crypto, providing regulated custody financial services and core infrastructure alike for investors and builders. That's going to do it for Jonathan, for Luca, for myself, and everyone at Coinage. Thanks again for tuning in.